Are you looking to leverage the latest and best ideas to grow your advisory business from the best minds in the industry? Join us every Wednesday at noon Pacific for our speaker series, featuring dynamic guests sharing real strategies for real results. Brought to you by The Best Notary, where we help estate planning attorneys grow their business with less stress and more success.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another speaker series from the Best Notary Speaker Series. Today's guest is David Ackert, and he's going to be talking about what you do when things aren't actually moving in the right direction. You've got a lot of activity, but the biz dev close is just not happening. This speaker series is about connecting and also highlighting trusted advisors in the professional services space. The host is The Best Notary, and here to introduce our speaker today is Eli. Before we get there, I just want to make sure everyone understands that, one, this presentation will be recorded, and David, will people be able to see the slides after this?
Yes, I'll share a PDF of the slides. I think I actually already sent that into your team, so feel free to distribute that to the attendees.
Awesome. And the recording of this will be posted on YouTube. So feel free to bother both Eli and David if you have additional questions after this. And I'm going to hand it over to Eli.
Thank you so much, Leah, and thank you again, David, for doing this for us. David is someone that I met through a friend of mine named Jamie Harvey through LinkedIn, of all places, thanks to my own work when it comes to biz dev and building and maintaining relationships. So I was very, very honored that David agreed to speak with us. So David is a very special person. He's the co-founder and CEO of Ackert Incorporated and its subsidiary, Pipeline Plus. He's a highly regarded business development thought leader. Over the past 2 decades, David has pioneered revenue acceleration programs for hundreds of professional services firms around the globe. He's the founder of several groundbreaking ventures in the industry, including the award-winning Pipeline Plus software suite. His programs have won Your Honor Awards in both the US and Canada, and his software has been featured in NLJ's Technologies on the Rise. David regularly keynotes at partner retreats and speaks at industry conferences. He also serves as a guest lecturer at USC's Marshall School of Business, Carnegie Mellon University, and at the UCLA School of Law. David is a best-selling author of The Shortlist, How to Drive Business Development by Focusing on the People Who Matter Most, published by Greenleaf. I have a copy, and it is an incredible book. The book is a gold winner of the 2025 Nonfiction Book Award. His work has also been published and quoted in several other business books and media, including the Los Angeles Times, the National Review, the Daily Journal, the Wall Street Journal, Above the Law, Attorney at Work, The Recorder, ALM, and the Los Angeles Business Journal. His Market Leaders podcast has won JD Super's Reader's Choice Award for 2 consecutive years. How did we become so fortunate as to have David here to tell us exactly how to build our shortlist and become pro biz dev experts? David, take it away.
Thanks so much, Eli and Leah. So appreciate the opportunity to speak to the group today. I'm going to share my screen. Let's just confirm that you're able to see that. Can we just do a thumbs up if that's coming through? Yes? Okay, thanks, Eli. Great. Let's dive right in. I am going to encourage you to use the chat and interact. If you have questions, if you have thoughts that you want to contribute to today's program, by all means, just use that and I'll try to integrate them. Hopefully we'll have time at the end for Q&A, but thanks to Mercury and the other powers that be, we are getting a bit of a late start. So I want to make sure we're getting through as much of what I wanted to share with you as possible. So we're going to start with how to clarify your business development goals. A lot of times people don't have very clear business development goals. And so we end up as professional service providers in a bit of a dynamic where we just want to grow our practice and that's our goal, or we just want bigger clients and that's our goal, or we want a bigger book of business. So it's really important to get very specific about what you're trying to achieve so you can reverse engineer that goal and get more specific about what you are going to do in order to have that success. Then we'll talk about streamlining your business development through a manageable pipeline system. We see this a lot as well, that most of us in professional services build our businesses through our relationships, but we don't have a very rigorous system for managing those relationships. We're very rigorous about billing our time and tracking that. We're very rigorous about tracking our accounting and our top line revenue and our profit margin. But when it comes to the thing that's actually feeding that whole system, we're pretty sloppy, really. We're like, oh, I've got these referral sources and I'll keep you in mind and you keep me in mind. And oh, I've got these clients and sometimes they even refer me. And, I'm just going to hopefully keep growing just by virtue of doing good work. It's nowhere near as committed an approach as we take to some of the other aspects of the business. So we'll take a closer look at that. How to stay focused on the business development activities that have meaningful long-term impact. We see this a lot too, the classic pendulum swing. It swings to the left where we find ourselves suddenly panicked because our pipeline is dried up. And now we're out there, we're networking, we're trying to get some referral sources going, some referrals coming in. Then all of a sudden a big project comes in, it swings all the way to the right. And now we have no time for business development and we let all those pipelines dry up and the extremes continue, right? So how do you stay focused on business development activities that have meaningful long-term impact for sustained growth rather than reactive growth? And finally, how to stay top of mind with the people who can refer or engage new work. I'll share some research with you that demonstrates how top of mind status is actually the most important thing you can do for yourself to ensure that the people and the relationships that you've developed are actually manifesting into new opportunities for you. So let's start with this. I'm going to ask what your primary business development challenge is, so we just get a sense of the room. And we'll go ahead and launch this as a poll. So you'll see the options on your screen here. Just go ahead and weigh in. Is it not enough high value opportunities? All these small clients, these tire kickers, it's just wasting a lot of my time. Is it perhaps I just don't have enough time to pursue the opportunities that I have? I've got opportunities, I've got good relationships. I just can never seem to find the time for it. Is it not enough productive referral sources? I really wish I had more of those. Maybe my services just aren't well known enough in the marketplace. And so I really need to get the name of the firm and to get that sort of go-to status out there. Maybe it's something else that's not included in this list, or you're not even sure, but something isn't working. Something's got to be addressed here. So go ahead and weigh in. I think most of you have done so at this point. We'll go ahead and end the poll. We'll share the results. So the three that have been selected here: not enough high value opportunities, not enough time, not enough productive referral sources. Great. We'll touch on each of those today. I do want to start by addressing the time reaction. So we hear this a lot, obviously, in the world of business development. I just don't have time for business development. I'm so busy. And I really urge you to use that as a cue for self-reflection, because not enough time is code for you're prioritizing things other than the thing that you're complaining about. So you have 24 hours in the day, just like everybody else. And at the end of the day, we have to decide what is urgent and important, and maybe what is important but not urgent. And sometimes the things that we are prioritizing, like servicing existing clients, of course, that's urgent, important. You simply can't not do that. But if the complaint is that there's so much of that going on that we are not then leaving any time for business development, we just have to take a step back and think about, well, maybe all of those clients that we're servicing are not the right clients because they're eating up so much of our time that there is only enough bandwidth to work in the business, not on the business. Maybe what we need to do is start to cull some of those lower value clients to free up time for the clients that we actually want to pursue. So just something to think about there as we challenge that not enough time thought that can often pop up in the context of business development. So most people in professional services have reactive business development, like I alluded to earlier, but for your book of business to be sustainable, you need strong relationships with high value clients. Now, you define what a high value client is, but it's got to ultimately fit that ideal profile. Otherwise, you find yourself in relationships that are transactional, with clients who view you as a commodity. And I would urge you to consider that those are low value client relationships. So if you don't have clear business development goals oriented around identifying high value clients and bringing them into your business, you are probably in a dynamic where you're just developing business opportunistically. Oh, Eli sent me a referral. Cool, I have more business now. Versus really taking a step back and saying, okay, do I have the right referrals coming in? Have I educated my referral sources on the kind of business that I want so that that is ultimately where my efforts are headed? And if you think about it, if you're like most people, you have mostly low value and medium value clients. You don't have enough high value clients. So I'm going to actually skip ahead for a second here and make that distinction. So a low value, let's see, do I have that in here? No, I guess I'll just talk about it. So a low value client is a client that is usually your bread and butter client, right? They're transactional in nature. They typically don't refer additional work to you, and they probably make up the lion's share of your book of business, but they're not particularly profitable. A medium value client is maybe, a larger client for you. It's good. They're probably a little more profitable. They may even occasionally refer and appreciate you, but they're nothing like a high value client. A high value client is that fantastic sort of whale opportunity that you would ideally want in your practice. They're giving you really interesting work. They never quibble over your fees. They pay your invoices on time. They refer generously. They're so appreciative. And if you could clone those clients and just service those kinds of people, you would do it in a heartbeat. But unfortunately, most of us have this gaggle of cats and dogs and maybe one or two horses, but no whales, right? And so we ultimately find ourselves in this dynamic where we get really busy with people who are keeping the lights on, but not necessarily helping us scale and grow our endeavor. So we need to take a step back and say, okay, what is my SMART goal? What is my specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, time-bound goal when it comes to growing my book of business? So instead of a generic goal, and you'll hear this a lot, maybe even out of your own mouth from time to time, oh, I want to grow my practice this year. I want to do better this year than last year. That's going to be growth. Get smart about it. I want to increase the value of my book of business by 25% over the next 12 months by securing at least 2 new middle market clients. And I'm defining middle market as revenue in the 50 million or 100 million up to 500 million, or however you define it is fine. This middle market definition is funny to me because it always depends on who you talk to. But at the end of the day, it's really for you. How are you defining that high value client that is really profitable and ultimately a measure of the kind of growth and scale that you're after in your practice? And then how are you ultimately setting that as a target so that the referral sources you're talking to are the kinds of people who have access to high value clients? You've all had this experience, I know I have, where I'll get a referral from someone and they'll say, David, I've got something for you. I was just talking to a client and they're looking for an individual coach. And they've got some business development challenges and they really want to hire a coach for, a couple, 3 sessions so they can kind of transform their BD. So I'm going to send them to you. And I'm always like, thank you. I'd have to send that back to you or maybe refer it to someone else if you'd want me to, because that doesn't even qualify low value client for me. We're running a much larger operation. We usually work with larger firms. We work with cohorts of people. We're working with managing partners. Sending me somebody who's dealing with issues that are at that level simply isn't going to be a good fit. And that's on me. I didn't educate my referral sources on the kinds of opportunities I'm looking for. We need to do that. And then we also need to make sure that our referral sources have access to the kinds of opportunities we're looking for. Don't waste time on another lunch with a referral source who is not in alignment with your SMART goals. If you don't think you have enough time, it may be because you're spending too much of it doing things like that. Okay, I'm going to take a breath here and just make sure that we don't have any questions coming in. All right, looks like we're good.
We're clear in the chat, but I'll throw something at you, David, that
Please.
I hear quite a lot is, this sounds well and good for someone who's a little bit more established, but what if you're a little bit earlier, let's say within the first 6 months of your practice?
Yeah.
What would a SMART goal look like for that type of person?
Great question, Leah. And I would just say if you're earlier in your practice, it doesn't mean you shouldn't have SMART goals. It just means they need to be realistic, right? This is the fourth word in the acronym SMART. So what is realistic for you? For you, realistic might be in the next 6 months, I want to land 2 clients that will help me that will enable me to cover the costs of running my firm. If I can just get 2 clients in the door that enable me to keep the lights on, never mind profit, I'll pay myself later, but I just want to keep the lights on, then that would be a huge win. Well, congratulations. That's specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound, right? So SMART goals apply regardless of where you are in your career, and you want to be constantly curating that SMART goal to make sure that it's commensurate with where you're headed, given your ambitions. So once you've got a goal in place, now the key is to have a consistent focus. And this is key. Again, we go back to this notion of I don't have enough time. Time is a reflection of where you're focusing your energy and what you're prioritizing. So you want to start focusing on the people who can help you achieve those goals. So I've got another poll here just to kind of get a sense of the room. So when you look at your client base, are they mostly high value, medium value, or low value? All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and share those results. So most of you are looking at medium value clients. No one indicated that they have mostly high value clients. Some of you even claim that they are mostly low value clients. And again, that's great. I don't know where you are in the development of your practice. You ultimately want to get to the point where you have mostly high value clients, maybe 1 or 2 medium value legacy relationships who are also referral sources. And so you haven't culled them yet. But this is very much an exercise in whatever has become the average today needs to be minimum acceptable tomorrow. Otherwise, you're not growing, right? You're constantly elevating that focus on how do you ensure that your book of business is growing. So I want to talk a little bit about relationships. We've got a technology product that we've developed and licensed into the marketplace since 2011. So it's been out there for 13, 14 years now, which is usually licensed in tandem with the coaching programs that we do with firms. And so you figure this has been out there for 14 years. We've had thousands of users using this app by this point, which means we have millions of data points. And what users do is that they'll put in their short list of key clients, prospects, and referral sources into this app. And then it will give them reminders on, oh, don't forget to reach out to Leah because Leah is one of your most important referral sources. And you two haven't touched base in about 6 months. That's a referral relationship that's atrophying. You don't want to do that. And then it'll give recommendations on what to do with that relationship. So as we look at the data in Pipeline Plus, what we see is there are some users that are growing their books of business while they're using the app. And then there are users who are just using the app to create busy work for themselves. So they're having random acts of lunch and they're, meeting people and having conversations, but they're not actually growing their books of business meaningfully. So what we do is we segment the user base into those who are growing their books and those who are not. And what we see when we look at those who are growing their books of business is that a successful pipeline consists of 9 to 35 people. Again, this comes down to the notion of focus and prioritization. The users that have fewer than 9 people on their short list ultimately find that they have too few at-bats and they're not able to grow their book of business consistently. Those who have more than 35 people end up overwhelmed because let's not forget, as doer sellers, there's a lot of our time that is spent in servicing work and billing time and running our firms and being our own IT department or whatever it is that you're doing. So you don't have that much time for more than 35 customized emails with, an article attached or lunches or site visits or leisurely conversations to be had over a ball game, right? Like these are the kinds of things you want to do with the people on your short list. And so you want to keep that number manageable. So the most successful people we've discovered who are growing their books of business have between 9 and 35 on their short list in their pipeline, in their relationship pipeline. They also have a diversified pipeline. They have all 3 categories reflected: clients, prospects, and referral sources. So it's not just referral sources, or it's not just people who try to mine their clients for referrals. They've got all 3. because they ultimately find that you have to diversify that energy across different profiles in order to ensure that the practice is continuing to grow. They find that there are generally 14 interactions between first contact and first contract. So if you look at the number of times that they interact with someone who they first meet, before they actually get business from them, there's 14 interactions. Now, interactions are not touch points. It's not your e-newsletter, right? It is a back and forth communication. It could be on social media. It could be in person. It could be over the phone. It could be Teams, whatever. But at the end of the day, there has to be those back and forth communications, because that's what builds trust. That's what gets people comfortable with sending you work. That's what helps people understand what it is exactly that you do and what your ideal client profile, that high value client, looks like. So this is an important note for those of you who get impatient early. I had lunch with so-and-so and it's been 3 months and I haven't gotten any work from them. I'm going to scratch them off my list. Well, that's one interaction. You're 13 interactions shy of actually developing a relationship with this person. Now, certainly if you're looking at the relationship and assessing that this is a taker, not a giver, then certainly cut bait. But chances are most of us are simply impatient entrepreneurs. Yes, that is an archetype that we find in this world. And you simply haven't put in the time. You haven't invested enough time in the people who, again, are aligned with those SMART goals of yours. And then the last thing that we see is that our most successful users have an outreach cadence of every 4 to 6 weeks. So again, when we survey our users who are not growing their books of business, but using our app, what they say is, well, I reach out every 3 to 6 months. And 3 to 6 months allows too much time lag for that top of mind status that we're going to get into momentarily. So you want to make sure that that outreach cadence is pretty tight. Again, anything inside of 4 to 6 weeks starts to feel like, whoa, didn't you just email me? Isn't this getting to be too much? But 4 to 6 weeks is a good cadence to set, as long as those outreaches are value adds. So here's outreach that won't work. Hey, I know we just talked last month, but I thought maybe we could get together and talk more about how you can send me business, right? Like, that's not a value add. Don't do that. It's annoying. But if you're reaching out with value, hey, I saw this article, I thought of you, just wanted to share, let me know how things are going. Or, hey, I was on Facebook and you posted that picture about your kid going to college. Congratulations, that's so great. Mine's going in 2 years. Let's get together and talk a little bit about the application process, because that's top of mind for me. And hey, I was just, online and I saw this webinar and I thought you might be interested. It looks like an interesting topic. I'm going. Are you going? These are all value adds, and they just keep the conversation flowing until it's time for business to be done.
So I'm
Please.
wondering, so David, I love a good data set that provides some insights. But when you talk to your clients about value add interactions, is there, how do you work with them through that cringe factor of like, oh, this is so transactional, so salesy, deliver value. It's really, really a lot of jargon. I just want to hang out with good people. So what would be your response to that sort of, I don't know, reaction or whatever?
I would just say it's all in the framing. I mean, are you cringing now? Because I'm here delivering value. And I'm not really selling you anything, but hopefully you're learning more about my services, right? So a lot of this is just the filter through which we perceive an interaction. And what I find is that people in professional services have such an aversion to sales that they immediately go to that place of associating it with something that's icky, or something that's maybe even a little dishonest, or maybe something that is riddled with a nefarious agenda. But the fact of the matter is, we are all in sales. We're all selling our services, and we all got into this because we want to help people. We're smart at something, and we want to help them with that thing that we're smart at. And so how do we do that? Well, we talk to people about it. And when we're not talking to them about it, we're talking to them about them. People love to talk about themselves, and frankly, so do we. So we get together and we talk about how our kids are going into college. Or we get together, when Eli and I had dinner the other night, we talked about oysters, and we talked about running businesses, and we talked about challenges with how to structure our services so that we're pricing them effectively. And we talked about whatever we wanted to, right? I would say that was a value-added dinner. I am aware in the background that I was staying top of mind with Eli, and he was staying top of mind with me, and we have increased the chances that we will do business together someday. And if we don't, it's okay too, right? So a lot of it really just comes down to that attitude. I urge any of you in professional services to, again, do some self-reflection. How much of this sales is icky opinion are you holding on to? And can you let go of it? Because it keeps you from being able to fully apply yourself to growing your practice. And it's just a narrative. You made it up. Until someone tells you, hey, when you reach out to me, it's icky, you made that up. You have no evidence that that's what's actually being experienced on the other side of the table.
I have a question about
Go
that.
ahead, Eli.
So when you have a high value target and you are trying to build a relationship and you're making these attempts to connect with them, but you're not hearing anything back, how do I interpret that? Someone said silence equals closer to no than closer to maybe I'm just really busy right now and I don't have the bandwidth to say anything back to you. So how do we deal with that rejection that I think leads to that icky, you know, trepidation that I am annoying this person and they don't want to hear from me?
Well, we are all either in the legal profession or adjacent to it, or we know lawyers pretty well. So I would again just go back to evidence. What evidence do you have that that was a no? I don't have any evidence that that was a no. Here are things that I can speculate. It went into their spam filter. They were really busy. I mean, I know I get busy and I don't respond to emails, especially low priority emails, immediately. They're on vacation. They forgot to turn on their out of office. Any of these things are just as likely as don't ever email me again. But where do we go? We go to the one thing that validates our worst fear. We go to the worst possible outcome, right? Now, liability spotting is really helpful in the practice of law. It is kryptonite in business development because then we quit too early. 14 interactions, you're never going to get to 14 interactions if you are prone to narratives that anticipate rejection, where you're rejecting yourself with no evidence that that's actually happened on the other side of things. So look, we're all busy people. There are people who are trying to sell to us. In some cases, we actually are interested in the things they're trying to sell to us. But right now, we don't have the bandwidth to be a prospect. We have the bandwidth to be a service provider or the bandwidth to be a seller. And so we're putting our time there. Then things calm down a little bit and we're like, oh, you know what, this person's been so, they're really been persistent but respectful. They sent me like 4 emails, and I've actually, one of those articles looked interesting and I wanted to look at it, and I wish I caught that webinar. They sent that webinar and that came and went. Maybe there's a recording. Let me go back and reconnect with them and say, hey, listen, I'm sorry. I know I've been a little rude here, but I am interested in having a conversation with you because your solution could really help me out. Let's schedule something, right? We've not only been that person, we've been on the receiving end of that email. So again, we need to look at the evidence. What is the hard evidence? And if there isn't any that suggests that our outreach is unwelcome, then we have absolutely no reason to assume that that's the case. Leah.
So I want to just kind of push on that a little bit, Eli.
Sure.
There's a word that you said. Sorry, coaching hat is on. I'm just listening. But personal rejection, there was a very personal component to that, and sales is personal, and it's not, right? And the best people I see doing this have a healthy mixture of both, that who can balance that, but rejection aversion is not their primary lens. And a radio silence or a no, it means something different than sort of the average human. I'm wondering how you would address that sort of thing, David.
Well, what I will say is that we have very little training in all of this. When we were kids, there were a couple of relationship archetypes that we were exposed to. There was family, right? Parents, siblings, and then there was friends. And there were no such things as clients. And so as we then sort of matured and entered the professional realm, we started experiencing clients. And clients felt more like friends than family. And so we kind of map it onto that model for ourselves. Now, if I have a good friend and I text a good friend, maybe twice, three times, like, hey, let's have dinner, and the good friend doesn't get back to me, I am offended and I'm hurt. I'm like, what's this all about? Like, I thought we were friends. And we have this unspoken contract where, you're not going to diss me. Friends don't do that to each other. I'm here for you when you need me. And so when we start interacting with clients, it feels like friends. Look, Eli and I are not friends, but we had a lovely dinner together. I'm not inviting him to my birthday party. Okay, there's a distinction, right? And by the way, my friends don't send me a lot of business. So there are different classes of relationship in our life. And we get two of these collapsed, and then our feelings get hurt because we become kind of close to our friends, even our prospects sometimes, certainly our referral sources, and we don't make that distinction that this is not your friend. This is a business relationship, and in a business relationship, I get to blow you off if I'm busy. And if you're hurt, you're not being very professional. And by the way, you can blow me off too. And if I'm hurt, I'm not being very professional. So we have to uncollapse this notion that people are supposed to treat us and our feelings a particular way, when in fact the dynamic is strictly professional. It's not personal. So why are we taking something personally? We should be taking it professionally. So again, food for thought. All of you are going to traverse these waters in whatever way makes sense to you. I'm here to flag those patterns that we've seen in professional services that are ultimately detrimental to growth. And if you're really committed to growing, you got to check some of this baggage. So I talked earlier about low value, medium value, high value clients. I won't get into that again. But again, as you're creating those SMART goals, as you're looking at your short list, you want to make sure that your short list consists of people who can help you achieve those SMART goals. And if your current book of business is mostly low value or medium value clients, and you want high value clients, then your shortlist needs to include high value prospects. So at a minimum, you need to have prospective clients who you are actively pursuing on that shortlist. Now, what we recommend in the book that I wrote in the shortlist is that you want to have 10 to 20% of your shortlist to be high value prospects. So if your prospect is Google, and you have no relationships at Google, but you feel that your business is actually well positioned to service needs at Google, then the decision maker at Google needs to be on your short list, even though you have no relationship to that person. Because now your goal is to reverse engineer, how do you develop that relationship? Are they a second degree connection on LinkedIn? Maybe someone can make an introduction. Is there an event where they're going to be a speaker? Maybe you can attend and stay after and speak with them. Is it just a matter of trying to assess who is in their universe of contacts so that you can find that referral source? But ultimately, the only way to get to high value clients is to start focusing on high value prospects and the referral sources who can make those introductions. So this takes us to influence scoring. Now, there's a phenomenon called homophily. And homophily is something that we all, as human beings, have a tendency toward. And it is essentially hanging out with other people who are just like us. So if you're making $150,000 a year, it's very comfortable to hang out with other people who are in that same revenue bracket. Why? Because you probably live in similar neighborhoods. You're probably driving similar cars. You're probably doing similar social things. If you want to go on vacation, nobody's like, I'm renting a yacht and now you can't afford to pitch in, right? So you're going to gravitate toward people who are relatively similar to you. And if you look at your referral sources, your book of business, your prospective clients even, you'll find that a lot of them are clustered around you when it comes to demographics, when it comes to socioeconomics, when it comes to psychographics. You tend to hang out with people with whom you have things in common. It's just easy. It's easy to talk about stuff. It's easy not to start comparing and feeling inferior. But your high value clients on an influence score live higher than you do. So the way to do this is to say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, who are the people who have the most influence in helping me achieve my SMART goals? And you would put yourself at the center of this rating because you do have influence over whether or not you achieve your SMART goals. If you don't do something about it, nobody will. But there are people in your life who have less influence than even you have. And there are those who certainly have more influence than you do. So ultimately, you have things like gatekeepers at 4 and decision makers at 5. And you need to start surrounding yourself with the people who rank a 5. And the way you do that is through attending events that they would attend, sitting on boards where they are sitting, maybe getting involved in special interest groups that are more aligned with their interests than your interests. Targeted social groups, volunteering is a great way into that if it's the right organization that attracts those high value client profiles, or other forums that provide meaningful, now here's a key word, recurring interactions. So it's not just, yeah, I went to that party that one time and I shake the hands of a lot of rich people and now what? I hope they invite me back to next year's party. No, sorry, that's not a strategy. What you need to do is find your way into the forums where those people hang out. So if, you're really into knitting with friends and that's getting you into this homophily dynamic of people who are in a certain socioeconomic realm, but all of your high value clients are on the golf course, guess what new activity you may want to start to explore? And look, I'm not here to, I hate golf, so that one's not for me, but I do like wine, and so a wine club. Or maybe it's a book club around business books for people who are trying to enter the $100 million sphere, right? Specific book club around those kinds of business issues. Now I can reach out to the people in that echelon of my network and say, hey, I'm putting together a book club for people who are in the middle market who want to get into Fortune 500. Are you in or out? Well, nobody else has given them that offer this year. That does sound kind of like a good use of time. Who else is in the group, right? And then you deal with that and you start putting these people together. Pretty soon you have a book club of people who are playing at a much higher level than the people in your knitting club. So this is where you start to form circles around these high influence, high value targets so that they are on your short list and you are starting to earn those 14 interactions toward business with them. Now, when we look at our prospect characteristics, we want to get very specific. I think some people could stand to be a little clearer on who their ideal client profile is. So if you're dealing in a B2B dynamic, you want to be looking at a company level, what is the industry, what is the vertical, what is the company size, what kinds of legal or other service needs might they have? What's the geographic location and growth potential? Are these things relevant to your business? And if so, what is your answer to those questions? And at the individual level, whether it's B2C or even in B2B, it ultimately comes down to someone who's the decision maker in that organization. So you want to make sure that that individual on your short list has decision-making authority. They understand the value of your offering. They have the budget and resources to afford what you want to charge, not what you're currently charging. That's another thing we all need to confront. Our rates are too low. I don't care what you charge. Your rates are too low. You know how I know that? You have low and medium value clients. So all of us, just as we tend to have these narratives around anticipating rejection, we also happen to have narratives around a little bit of imposter syndrome when we consider what we're charging for our services. So every year, we'll go through a client feedback process where we ask our clients on a scale of 1 to 10, how much value are they getting from Pipeline Plus, from the various products and services we offer. And we usually get very high scores, right? And by the way, so do you. Your clients are thrilled with you or they would have fired you a long time ago. But when we look at the average feedback score, when it comes to value, it's much lower than the score that we're getting. So the average service provider hovers somewhere around a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10. In other words, the clients are like, look, you're not awesome, but you're good enough, and I'm not going to fire you. So when we're ranking an 8.5 or even a 9, we're a really, really, really good deal. And every one of those reallys is a significant profit chunk that we're leaving on the table. Because what we should be charging is enough to be a really good deal, or maybe even just a good deal. But instead, this billing confidence that tends to be lacking, and the pricing confidence that tends to be lacking in the professional services realm, has us tell ourselves things like, well, I'm going to compete on price, or, well, I'm going to make sure that I'm, such a good deal that they would never leave me. And again, a lot of this fear-based thinking that has us undervalue our services. So I would just urge you to make informed decisions around where you set your fees. Don't just talk to a couple of competitors and be like, well, they're charging $400 an hour, so I'm going to charge $390. I'm sorry, that's not enough market research. You've got to talk to your clients, ask them about the value that they receive from your services, and then identify what the averages are. You can get a lot of that research online and compare where you sit with that. And then dare to be the more expensive alternative, and then justify it.
So I'm really quick. I think I lost a detail there. So you have two different surveys, two different scales.
Yeah.
And one tells you one story, one tells you the other. What are those two again?
Sure. So if you look at the market research on client feedback, where the question of, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much value do clients receive from their service providers, you'll find that the average number hovers somewhere around 7. If you ask your clients how much value they receive from doing business with you, you're going to find that your number is probably higher than 7, which means you could raise your rates significantly and the score would go down a bit, but you would make more money and you'd still keep the client.
Mic drop moment right there, folks.
So when we think about prospect characteristics, we want to make sure that one of the characteristics of our prospect is that they understand the value of your offering and they have the budget to pay the rates that you want to charge, not the ones that you've talked yourself into being competitive around, because you're leaving money on the table. If you don't believe me, raise your rates by 15 to 20% next year. You will lose 1 or 2 clients, and they're the 2 clients that constantly quibble over your rates, and they're constantly high maintenance, and they're the biggest pain in the butt for you. But the difference you just made in the 20% profit margin on all the other clients more than makes up for the 1 or 2 clients that you never have to speak to again. Now, make sure that you share. Sorry, go ahead, Eli.
If you raise by more than 20%, is there a particular, range of increase that is customary, that if I go above that, I'm seen as somebody who's taking advantage of price gouging? Or do I have complete choice in terms of how much I could raise the prices by?
Well, how much do you raise? And you don't have to answer this question. You can answer it for yourself. But how much do you raise your prices every year? Most service professionals are somewhere between 3 and 8% a year, right? Which is just barely ahead of inflation. So you are making that decision probably because you're scared that if you actually went significantly over inflation, that they would perceive it, and you use the words yourselves, they would perceive you as a price gouger. What a terrible characterization. Well, that just tells me that you have not come up with a narrative that justifies that price increase. So the narrative is, we are now integrating AI into our services so that we're much more efficient and that we bring a lot more market analysis into all of the things that we're delivering to you. But the AI tools and the technology tools that we're licensing are not cheap. And so we are having to make that adjustment. I'm just making something up here, and you'll have to make something up for yourself. We just hired 2 more people onto the team. I want you to meet Kate and James. They're amazing. But of course, as we grow, we are able to deliver more services to you, and we're moving into this next tier of service delivery for you. So you're going to see this reflected in your upcoming invoices. Look, most clients don't fire their service provider because they hiked their rates. They have the thought. They're like, oh my gosh, a 15% increase. That seems pretty high. I mean, I know you hired James and Kate, good for you, but I should probably look around and find an alternative. Guess who's too busy to do that, though? And, 2 months later, they've totally gotten used to your new rates, and everybody's friends again, and life goes on, and now you are significantly more profitable, and you're finally getting paid what you're worth. But you've got to have the stomach for that process.
I hate to interject right now, but we have a little less than 10 minutes left. And I was really curious if we could get to that top of mind magic you had mentioned earlier on.
Sure. So this is the research I wanted to share with you. Thomson Reuters did a survey of 415 buyers of professional services, and they asked the question, what made your provider come to mind when you had a piece of work to give? And, they said, is it, the fact that you're in the same alumni network? 8.6% said, yeah, that has something to do with it. Is it their reputation? Only 13% said that had something to do with it. What about geography or quality of service or even the fact that they have a specialty? No. The thing that made the biggest difference almost 70% of the time was they reached out recently. They were top of mind. So that is the great equalizer, right? You've got bigger competitors, they've got cooler websites, they have more services, maybe they've been in business longer than you, they've got name brand logos. Doesn't matter if they're not top of mind, if there was no recent contact from them with the prospect's going to go with, I'm hiring Leah. Why? Because she just emailed me last week. Or we just had lunch 2 weeks ago. It was a lovely lunch. And she said something that, I'm still thinking about. It was great. So give it to Leah. She's fine. She'll get the job done. I do not have time to assess the entire marketplace on who has the best price and the best reputation and who's just won an award. Like, we're not doing that. I'm getting this off my desk. Now, if Leah doesn't reach back out 12 months later, it's probably going to be somebody else's top of mind. So it is incumbent on us to make sure that these people who are driving the revenue in our practice are on our short list and that we're managing our short lists as diligently as we manage our billable time or any other unit that we are ultimately measuring tied to our growth. So as Leah mentioned, we don't have a whole lot of time left, so I'm going to sort of skip to the end here. You are going to get these slides, so hopefully that will be helpful. I'm going to touch on one thing, which is there's been a question around how do we ultimately stay top of mind with all of these value adds, right? And we don't want to make it feel like the value adds are ultimately feeling salesy. And so if you pick up a copy of the short list, I have something in there called the 40 Actions Matrix. And it lists 40 different things that you can do that are value added and not at all salesy. They're just kind things you can do in a business context that are appropriate to nurturing a business development relationship. And there are a few examples here, but ultimately the list of 40 is sort of mapped out over the various engagement stages that you might find yourself in with a prospect. So you can select the one that ultimately resonates, and you'll always have something that you can reach out with.
Oh my gosh, that's worth coming to this whole thing just for that. That's incredible. I wish we had time to kind of unpack that a little bit more. I want to answer a couple questions and I want to bring forward a couple questions. So just as a reminder, this is being recorded and everyone who registered will receive a link to that recording as well as a PDF of the slides. And here's a question. What are your thoughts on formal networking groups?
It really depends on where you are in your practice. If you're talking about groups like Provisors or ACG or any of those sort of formal constructs, I think that they're really good for picking up small to middle market, especially small business accounts from providers who, again, homophily. You're going to look around the room and see a lot of providers who are a lot like you. So it's great for gradual growth. If you're really looking to scale, if you're looking for high value clients, you're probably not going to find as many in that kind of an environment. So be selective about who you focus on and who you nurture your relationships with. Don't just do what everyone else does. Don't just go to the group meeting and go to the troika or whatever it is and expect significant growth. You'll get incremental growth, just like everybody else is getting out of those groups. Ultimately, I'm a big fan of creating your own targeted masterminds or special interest groups, like the example I gave earlier on the book club or the wine club, where you've curated people not who, managed to get into this networking group just because they filled out a form online, but who actually fulfill a profile that is consistent with the SMART goals that you're looking to grow toward. Couple of closing remarks here. So I have a webinar series that dives into these concepts much more deeply. I know we didn't get to a lot of this, but tomorrow is session 1. I'll be going through some of what I covered today and a little bit more. So if you have people on your team who you'd like to experience these concepts and even build on them, I'll have a special session just on referral sources and a special session on expanding key accounts. Please let us know, and we'll make sure that we get that link over to you. I think I have a poll on this actually, so we'll launch that real quick. Yeah, here we go. So if you're interested in a reg link on the shortlist webinars, go ahead and click yes. No worries if the answer is no. And then Eli, if you'll just let me know who said yes, we'll make sure that they get that link.
Absolutely. We'll send an email out as well.
Pose a question here, just on behalf of, there's probably a considerable range here within the attendee population of where they're at, but the most questions I get are for people who are just getting started. How would you encourage them to manage their own expectations on what success looks like in that first year? I mean, it takes a couple years of blood, sweat, and tears for any startup to get off the ground.
That's right. I think it's really important for that sort of thing to surround yourself with mentors you respect who've been through the journey and ask them what theirs was like. You're going to find that very few people were overnight successes. Everybody had to play the long game. They had to roll up their sleeves. They had to have lean years in the beginning. They had to do the kinds of work that maybe they didn't even want to do. They certainly had to wear a lot of hats before they ever got to the point where their practice looked the way that they wanted it to look. And if you get them to be honest with you, they'll tell you that it still doesn't look the way they want it to look. It is an ongoing process to evolve and grow into the next iteration of what you envision. So those mentors are really important to provide perspective. The last thing I just want to invite you to do is, if the 40 Actions Matrix or any of these concepts resonate for you and you want to take a deeper dive, you may want to pick up a copy of the short list. It's available on Amazon. That QR code will take you there. But it has all of the business development strategies that we recommend and that we have found to be most effective in the context of professional services. So if you're looking for a field guide on how to drive business development by focusing on the people who matter most, you'll have access to it there. And with that, I promised Leah I would end on time. So here we are.
Thank you so much. Any final comments from Eli and the Best Notary?
I just wanted to say that the short list is also available on Spotify, and David gets to read it himself, and it is incredible. It's a 6-hour read, listen. So a nice way to soak in all the great biz dev knowledge while you're on the go. And I have just, honestly, I am challenged right now because I need more of those high value clients. I've been very fortunate to have a lot of, some of those kind of medium to low value folks, but it's a stretch to reach up into that next tier. As you said, it's going against the grain of how we're mostly wired. So I am just right now buzzing with ideas. And I can't wait to dig into your document there and find, ways to build those relationships incrementally. So thanks to everyone who attended today. I see some new faces here. Jeff Coe, welcome. Thank you for the LinkedIn invite. Jennifer, thanks for being a frequent flyer here. Christina, I think out in Nevada. Our client Birgitta in Mountain View. This, to me, is the combination of so much work at creating this platform. And I cannot wait to see what we will do going forward to bring more speakers like David. And next month, I think we have a lady who will be talking to us about a coach about how to bring love into your business, which is a really provocative thing to say. But we're excited to present that. Sophia will be getting out the invites after that shortly. But thanks for everyone who came here today. And reach out to myself, Leah, Sophia, if you need anything going forward. I guess Leah going to close us out.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you and have an amazing day.
Thank you for watching the Best Notary Speaker Series. Come join us on Zoom every Wednesday of the month at noon Pacific and 3 p.m. Eastern. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notified when new episodes are released. This speaker series is sponsored by The Best Notary, your trusted document concierge from Maui to Maine.